Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Friends of the Dar, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. al-Athar al-Islamiyyah tonight welcomes two distinguished architects. Our guests are recognized as amongst the best architects in the Middle East. They are the principals and founding partners of AGI Architects. They established the Hispanic Kuwaiti architectural studio in 2006. The two architects are trained in Harvard University and have participated as speakers at two professional symposiums at Yale and Harvard architectural schools. The symposiums challenged the increasing normalization of homogeneous environment through an exploration of the behavior of light and its interaction with human perception. Don't ask me to explain that, they will. They also participated in panel discussions on designing for darkness, showing how AGI architects design their single-family homes in a desert climate, adopting rather their solutions to local environment. That's new to me too. Tonight, Dr. Nasir AbuHassan and Joaquin Perez, I hope I didn't torture your name, will discuss the new life of Nur. The word Nur in Arabic means light. They will discuss Nur not in its spiritual form, but rather in an architectural form. They claim that it has many influences in their work. We also get other unwelcome influences in our lecture series. They are called mobile phones. So please turn them off and let's welcome Dr. AbuHassan and Mr. Joaquin Perez.
Thank you very much to us for being here. It's a great honor to be here today. And this is not going only from our side, but also from our full team, that although it's partially represented here, we have another part also in Spain, another part here that hasn't been able to assist. Then. Tonight, we're going to be focusing not only on our work, but we wanted to address the way we think, and especially arise our concerns with regards to architecture and the living condition of people. So in this sense, we're going to be focusing on social and cultural, and the social and cultural framework of our practice. Okay. Since postmodernism hasn't been a clear movement that has a stand on the architectural panorama, that means that people hasn't been able to take a strong position saying, I'm against this type of architecture or in favor of this type of architecture. Right now, okay, we are working in an open field, very fluid, and highly influenced by commercial interests, that they fluctuate too fast for the path of architecture and urban design. That means that we are not building for today, we are building for the future. So we are tracing the future. We are the impact that whatever we do today have in the future is extremely relevant. In this sense, we could say that our work is full of contradictions. Venturi already addressed this issue a long time ago in the 70s, but I think he wasn't aware of where we are standing today. Today we have to negotiate with very much complex processes, excessive access to data, that we don't know what to do with it, open systems, precarious environmental conditions that is extremely changing. We are practicing in different continents with different cultures, which makes our practice even more difficult. Us and our office, instead of confronting this contradiction, we just absorb it, saying that we could say that we are aware, no, of living in this type of contradiction. And this is inherent in our work, but also we try to represent it in our webpage. This is why when we changed it a year and a half ago, if you see, we always have this duality between private interior, public interior, between residential public programs, in between public, private, private, public. We don't know anymore what is what. You see, this, we will go through some of our work, not in detail, but I think this is extremely relevant to understand where we are standing right now. Our practice, as you know, is mainly in Spain and Kuwait. Spaces that were rapidly transformed, in the past, we could say last century, and led to big social changes. Social changes that, in principle, they were positive, these positive dynamics for the urban regeneration that were addressed at that time with a very enthusiastic, Kuwait, we could say that the change has been a bit more visible, but in Spain too. The problem is that these changes at the end, it marked a new urban Spain and an urban condition that is bringing social dissatisfaction on rise. So we cannot say we have been very clever as architects and urban designers to address what was going on at that time. How we see it is that the problem is, and I see this is a very particular way, we see that apart from certain architectural practices that here is Franguer in Bilbao, but we could say Zaha Hadid, Eichmann, and VRTV, that they have mastered the research-based design. How we see it is that design right now, it's based on form and image. This is an image here in Kuwait, which for us is the new consumable commodity for the market. In this sense, for us, we have been always struggling, and I think in this case, we could say that we have lost certain commissions because we don't believe that's the way to practice. But our focus has been on experience of the space, of how to experience the space. The design is, the structure of our design is based on that, how to experience the space. And in this sense, the continuous experimentation with Nur, and this comes the word Nur, has influenced so much our practice. Nur, it doesn't refer only to lights, okay? There are so many concepts embedded in this word. And I think that's the relevant part of it. Light in each culture has a certain meaning, but it's true that Nur refers to physical and metaphysical aspects of light. In Judaism and in Christianity also, the concept of light is the core of the concept of faith, but there are so many parallel concepts that relate to it that normally people doesn't address. we are going to show you some examples that we consider relevant, and relevant not because Nur is our only focus on our practice, but how Nur has been represented in the history and how that also has influenced us. We could see it in the writing, okay, how the writing itself, meaning was highlighted by light, okay, how light, the concept of Nur in Islam, transformed completely what is the concept of time and the concept of space. Time setting, okay, around Muhammad's life, the whole calendar, but also how it's structured on a daily basis, the daily life of so many people. And that is extremely relevant, how it could change, you know, how it influenced people in that way. And a space, also with the introduction of the direction of how to pray towards Mecca. That's, again, something at this time, something new. Also, Nur, okay, led to extensive research on science, on optics and ophthalmology, that, for instance, find out that contrary to the Greek scholars, that the rays were not coming from the human eye, but they were coming from the reflection into objects. Imagine what's the change, no? Just the implication of these concepts through history. Also, how in metal, so all that concept, how they have been transformed into art pieces, how it's coming into our daily experience. This is a good example, okay? How metal work, okay, with these engravings, the combination of different metals brings, okay, create depths in a flat surface. Or in ceramics, for instance, how the different types of glazing relate to this Islamic mystical culture and thinking. Another example that we consider extremely relevant is the concept of the lamp. A lamp, a simple, no? The lamp. We know that, as we said before, for many religions, the light is the guide, but the lamp is stayed. And this has been present in many ways. Antoine Gaillard, which is a scholar, a French scholar of the 17th, 19th century, he translated 1001 Nights and introduced the figure of Aladdin's lamp, which right now is part of the representation of the Islamic world in the Western imaginary. Also, this is, okay, a text, the translation. Also, for instance, how we have it, we are not aware of it, but this is a double carpet. The carpet was represented in the history of the humankind, and how it's present. It's already still present. No? How the light, the lamp, is structured, all that. And then it comes architecture. Architecture, how this light is represented three-dimensional, how it covers all the aspects, especially Islamic architecture. This is in Cordoba, in Spain, and how it covers all these aspects that we were talking about Nur. No? We could say that all this that we see in this architecture, in many cases, has gone. No? And this is our struggling on a daily basis, how to bring meaning into an architectural practice.
What we tried to do is actually structure this presentation into 4 segments. We will start actually with the light as structure. So as we begin to go through our work, we'll be presenting one of our earliest jobs, which is Mr. Ali Al-Ghanem Clinic in Slaby Khat. we won't be discussing the project in detail, but we'll be going through certain ideologies that we actually used that are very much inherent of how we practice right now. So in this particular project, which was situated in so-called an abandoned area in Slaybikhat, we began to organize the clinic itself, which is a healthcare clinic, around around Nur, around light. And we structured the spaces that begin to circulate around the idea of how do you perceive light? How do you get closer to light? How do you begin to circulate towards the light? So as you begin to actually go around the clinic, what you begin to understand is actually the quality of light that you get through the various types of courtyards, and most importantly, how the light itself and how the different mechanisms of us using light to protect, but also to signify power of this healthcare institute within the site where it stands in. Obviously, the issue of structuring light is very important, not only in this project, but we've actually begun to develop it as well in a different content. And in this project, which we did, again, a few years back, which is last instance, a church is in the outskirts of Seville, where it was developed in a very impoverished area, which is at the outskirts of Seville, where we had very limited resources in developing this project. And there were two primary elements that we looked at. One, which is the floor, which is like a carpet that began from the main entrance to welcome people through the project itself. And then the second more important part is actually the roof. And the roof actually started to work as a mean to focus the light into the various areas within the church itself. So we used Nur to structure the way people actually pray within this environment.
Nur, also for us, we have been playing with it to bring depth, to bring activity. Here, for instance, Alhambra, again, you know, how we are going to talk right now of with 4 residential projects, but we'll go very fast too. But for you to understand what does it mean, why we need to do that. The first is what we call the Manor House. All these projects, residential projects, they are here in Kuwait. The Manor House is an extensive house that was structured through 7 courtyards, and it has a very extensive program that, here you have the 7 courtyards, very extensive program with limited views into the sea, so this is why the orientations. What we were confronting is the repetition of social spaces, you know? And how to transform these spaces as we go, changing the materiality, but also changing how you perceive the space. The space has to be read in a different way on a daily basis, but also in the way you move around. This also has a strong impact on what is the mesravia, this fence that we used it. You see there the implication that it has, how it changes completely how you could perceive the space. You know? And instead of being a monotonous element, it becomes part of that reading, extra reading, you know, these layers of information that we are providing to the end user. Also, for us, it was very important to break that relationship between interior and exterior and bring that continuation between one space and the other one. So that reading, we could only do it, we managed to do it through light, through Nur. Here there's another example, completely different. This is credit 1. It's an office for a car leasing company. And in this case, we wanted to represent, for instance, what is the values of this company. Again, it's structured through different, you see it's in Al-Rai, a very compact plot. We needed to bring some lights into all the working spaces. So we, again, structured the project around six skylights. The issue here is we wanted to talk about cars, how that cinematographical experience when you are driving, okay, is represented on a static element, on a static architectural element. And this was why we introduced this blurry space in a way that, for us, you don't really perceive what's the space, but you only feel, you have an experience of what is going on. Okay? So there are small flashes of a sequence of things. And that was, we consider very important, to bring that aspect of what is a car. Then we're going to just introduce you this other project, 3 gardens. Again, not relevant programmatically what it is. It's a house that the clients wanted to have a huge garden space, but with a huge program in the plot. This is a common practice with many clients. So what we did is we provided 3 gardens, 3 different gardens. A summer garden, a winter garden, and what we call a water garden. The water garden, okay, here you have that relationship. There are 2 courtyards that relates diagonal. But the water garden is what becomes the lantern of the project. And this goes back to what we have spoken before. The water itself, you see the kind of reflections that brings into the house, the type of life that we wanted the client to experience, in a way that this is the core, is the soul of the house. That garden becomes the core and the soul of the house. The last example is what we call secret house. The approach is completely different. You see how we manipulate this issue of Nur. This is why we said it has so many meanings, so many aspects that we could address with it. And it's not only, okay, this is, again, Nur is one of the aspects that falls into our practice. But for us, this is very relevant. In this case, what we call secret house, okay, is for a family too. The house is a structure of 1 single courtyard, but what is most important is that courtyard is only perceived at ground level. This is an image of the ground level, and in it is this sequence of light and shadow what structured the levels of privacy that the client wanted. It's at ground floor, it's open, but at the same time, kind of identifies very clearly, okay, where you have to stand and how you could, where as a guest, or as a family member, how far you could go. It's very simple. There's no barriers. The barriers are psychological barriers, but they are very clear on the state of mind. Some images, the only thing is on the upper floor, it covers, is the opposite. There's a full transparency in order that the family members interact in between them. So the relationships changes completely. And the light, the way you approach light, again, changes completely. From the outside, you barely see anything, but the richness that is inside, and this is why we call it secret house, is what we didn't want to show, but how you perceive it when you enter into it.
In the 3rd chapter, we talk about the light as a physical color, and its relationship, color being actually the cultural signifier. and it expressed certain codes within this society. We'll start with a project which we called Green Core. It's actually a multi-family house on a single family plot. We developed for this client actually 6 apartments within a 1,000 square meter plot. And what was very important about this project is actually how can we create as much privacy to the people circulating within the house and living in the house as they begin to explore this project. So due to the privacy reasons, we began to circulate around the central courtyard, which you begin to see here in green. And that central courtyard has the vertical elevators as well as the stairs. Very importantly, we began to introduce what is why the project is called green, actually, a green mesh which allows us to borrow light from the central courtyard but gives you the maximum privacy for the users who are living within these 6 units. Of course, green is a color that represents in Islam the nature, the tranquility, and that's something that for us it's quite relevant in a project similar to this. On a different scale project, and again a project here in Kuwait, this is a public project that we developed called Mr. Hisham al-Sagar Cardiac Center. It's a cardiac hospital in the Sabah area. This project for us works quite interestingly enough because there are a lot of patients in Kuwait that do have continuous relationship with this building because they get to visit it at least once every 3 months because of the chronic disease here in Kuwait. So what we wanted to do is actually we wanted to celebrate the social aspect that patients do come and do gather in this building so often. And we tried to distinguish all the circulation spaces and the public areas using this actually red color. From the outside, you begin to actually see the building itself, but you only approach the areas where the light comes through, and then you begin to explore the building through the light. And what's very, very important is all the public areas, as I mentioned, has this color red, which represents and stimulates the strength and the power. The circulation spaces that are for the doctors and for the healing spaces have different colors, which are actually more natural and more monotone.
Oh, the unknown, we have seen how many meanings could have Nur and had in the past, but in the future, we don't know what's going on. We know there is a huge transformation in the virtual world. We know we think how things will change, but still we don't know how we're going to perceive these spaces. We don't know how we're going to be able to live with these spaces. In this sense, we just right as we speak, we just launched a new project that we co-directed and co-produced in the urban space. That is a light festival in Spain. I'm going to show you a small video just for you to understand what we are talking. In it, you see the power of transformation of a full city only through light. Through light, there are light installations, and that could, and I think this is the best representation of it, how could, in a day, transform a full city. Let's see if it's done. So imagine that immateriality, how it's going to fall into our daily basis. We'll see. In that sense, we are really thinking how to challenge architecture by itself, and really waiting for new experiences.
To conclude, we'd like to say that design is a complex set of parameters that will never lead to a singular conclusion. The relevance in education in the field of art, history, culture, sociology, anthropology, the sciences, and others will always directly influence all types of design and execution of projects worldwide. The value of a well-rounded client, consultant, and end users, politicians, regulatory bodies, and an informed, active population is essential for a healthy and stimulating built environment that intends to last generations. We would like to thank the Dar al-Athar al-Islamiyyah for inviting us to speak at such a forum. As this forum is actually a catalyst to changing society's perception, understanding, and awareness. Thank you.